I never thought one evening could shatter everything I believed about love, loyalty, and the man I married. It all started with a company dinner, one of those formal gatherings my husband always insisted I attend to show support for his career. I didn't want to go. I had a strange feeling that day, a heaviness in my chest I couldn't shake. But I smiled, put on a dress he picked for me, and told myself I was just being silly. My husband had been working at the same firm for almost a decade. He always spoke so highly of his boss, Mr. Clay. "He's helped me so much," he'd say. "I owe him everything." I'd only met the man a couple of times in passing. He was charming, sure, but something about the way his eyes lingered made me uncomfortable. That night, the restaurant was buzzing with laughter, clinking glasses, and shallow compliments. My husband was busy mingling, making his rounds, laughing just a bit too loudly at jokes that weren't funny. I was left sitting at the table, sipping water and pretending to check my phone. Then Mr. Clay walked over. He sat down beside me, too close. At first, I thought maybe he just wanted to be friendly. Maybe he was trying to keep me company. But within minutes, I realized something was very wrong. What he whispered to me, what he suggested with that smug smile, it made my blood run cold. I froze. I looked for my husband across the room, but he was laughing, clinking glasses with some executive, completely unaware. That moment, just a few minutes, was all it took to shake the foundation of our marriage. And what happened after that changed everything forever. I sat there frozen, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Mr. Clay leaned in so casually, his voice calm, but the words he said felt like knives. He talked about how lonely these events could be, how stunning I looked in that dress, and how my husband was too busy chasing success to notice what he had at home. At first, I forced a smile, thinking maybe I'd misunderstood. But the way he looked at me, like I was something he could just reach out and take, left no doubt in my mind. I tried to change the subject, even laughed nervously, hoping he'd back off. But he didn't. He leaned closer, lowering his voice like we were sharing some private joke. "You don't have to play the perfect wife tonight," he said. "No one's watching. Especially not your husband." I felt sick. I stood up quickly, pretending I needed some air. My hands were shaking, but I tried not to let it show. I didn't want to cause a scene. I didn't want to embarrass my husband. Isn't that strange? Even after what was said to me, my first instinct was to protect him. I found a quiet corner outside the restaurant and took a few deep breaths. My mind was racing. Should I tell him? Would he believe me? Mr. Clay was his mentor, his biggest supporter at work. The man who got him promoted. The man who introduced us to everyone at that dinner with pride in his voice. I felt like I was stuck in some twisted game where every move could break something. When I walked back in, I saw Mr. Clay laughing with my husband, like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't just crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab my husband and tell him everything. But I didn't. I just sat there, quiet, watching the two of them talk like best friends, while my heart kept pounding in my chest. The worst part was, I wasn't even sure anymore what my husband would do if I told him. Would he defend me? Or would he defend the man who held the key to his career? That doubt, it started to crack something inside me. And once those cracks began, there was no going back. The ride home that night was painfully quiet. My husband talked about how well the dinner went, how Mr. Clay promised to put in a good word for him with the board. He was glowing with excitement, and I just sat there, nodding, gripping the seatbelt a little too tight. Part of me wanted to tell him right then. Just say it. Get it out. But something held me back. Maybe it was fear of not being believed. Maybe it was fear of becoming the reason everything he worked so hard for started to fall apart. Over the next few days, I became distant. I tried to act normal, but the words Mr. Clay whispered kept echoing in my mind. My husband noticed. He asked if something was wrong, and I lied. I said I was just tired. He kissed my forehead and told me he had another late meeting with Mr. Clay. That's when the knot in my stomach tightened. I wanted to scream, "He's not who you think he is." But I didn't. Instead, I started keeping a journal, writing everything down. Every moment from that night, every emotion, every doubt. It was the only way I could stay sane. Then came the texts. Mr. Clay somehow got my number. He messaged me late at night. Nothing directly inappropriate, but each message carried that same hidden meaning. Hope you made it home safely the other night. I meant what I said. You deserve more. I didn't respond, but the silence didn't stop him. I considered blocking him, but I hesitated. I needed proof. I needed something real in case this ever came out. Because if it was my word against his, I knew who everyone would believe. I started noticing changes in my husband too. He became more defensive, more distracted. He stopped asking me how I was doing. His focus shifted completely to work, to Mr. Clay. He talked about him constantly, as if this man could do no wrong. The more he praised him, the more alone I felt. It was like I was watching my marriage slowly slip away, and I couldn't tell if I was losing my husband to ambition or to the man who had quietly stepped into both our lives, with a smile that now haunted me. A week later, my husband invited Mr. Clay over for dinner. I stood in the kitchen, holding a bowl of salad, completely still. Asked him why, and he said it was just a casual meal, something to show appreciation.
"He's been good to me," he said.
I want him to feel welcome in our home. I stared at him, wondering if he could see how much that sentence cut me. But he didn't. He just smiled, kissed my cheek, and went back to setting the table, completely unaware of the storm building inside me. The night arrived faster than I was ready for. I spent hours preparing the house, not out of politeness, but because I needed to keep moving. My mind wouldn't stop spinning. How was I supposed to sit across the table from the man who had quietly tried to break my trust, while my husband poured him wine and called him a role model? When Mr. Clay arrived, he acted like nothing had ever happened. He greeted me with that same smile, polite and practiced. He even handed me a small bouquet of flowers, like some kind of sick joke. My husband didn't notice the way my hands trembled as I took them. During dinner, I barely spoke. I watched them laugh, share inside jokes, talk about projects at work. But beneath all of it, I could feel Mr. Clay watching me, testing me. Halfway through the meal, my husband left the room to take a work call. It was just me and Mr. Clay at the table. He leaned forward slightly and said, low enough for only me to hear, "You're quiet tonight. I hope you haven't forgotten our little moment." My throat went dry. I looked at the door, hoping my husband would come back in, but he didn't. Then, as I stood up to clear the plates, Mr. Clay's hand brushed mine, deliberate, slow. I pulled back sharply, and the sound of the plate clattering onto the counter broke the silence. He smiled like it was nothing. I couldn't take it anymore. My heart was pounding. I walked out of the room, went straight to our bedroom, and locked the door. And in that moment, I knew something had to change. But what I didn't know was just how far this would go and how badly it would break everything that was left. I sat on the edge of the bed, clutching my phone, hands still shaking. I had no idea what to do next. I wanted to call someone, anyone, but I didn't even know how to explain it. How do you tell people that your husband's boss is slowly tearing apart your sanity while your husband smiles and calls him a blessing? A few minutes later, I heard the front door close. My husband was walking Mr. Clay out. I held my breath, listening for the sound of footsteps coming toward the bedroom. When they didn't come, I slowly unlocked the door and stepped into the hallway. He was in the living room, pacing. When he noticed me, he asked if I was okay, said I disappeared suddenly, and hoped nothing was wrong. I stared at him, trying to find the right words. "I don't trust him," I said finally. My voice came out small, unsure. "Mr. Clay, he's not who you think he is." My husband looked confused, maybe even slightly amused. "He's intense," he said, "but he's not a bad guy. You just don't know him like I do." I felt something in my chest crack. The way he brushed it off, the way he chose to protect the man who had crossed every line, made me feel invisible. I turned around and went back to the bedroom. I didn't sleep that night. The twist came 2 days later. I received an email. At first, I assumed it was work-related, but when I opened it, I froze. Attached was a photo, me, at the dinner table, looking visibly uncomfortable, with Mr. Clay's hand grazing mine. The angle suggested had been taken through the dining room window. My stomach dropped. The subject line was simple: I see everything. I looked around the room like someone might be watching me right now. My hands were ice cold. Someone had been outside her house. Someone had been watching. And it wasn't just about what happened that night. It was a warning. I didn't know what to do. If I showed the photo to my husband, would he believe me now? Or would he think I staged it? Was Mr. Clay behind it? Or someone else? The timing was too perfect, too calculated. Then the second message came. No photos this time. Just a line that chilled me to the bone. Tell your husband, and everything falls apart. The fear I felt wasn't just for myself anymore. It was for the cracks in my marriage, the lies already hanging in the air, and now this. Someone was playing a dangerous game, and I was trapped in the middle of it. I felt like I was walking through a maze where every turn led deeper into something I didn't understand. What scared me the most was the feeling that someone close to us, someone we trusted, wasn't just watching, they were waiting. The next morning, I didn't pretend anymore. I printed the emails, the photo, every message he sent. I placed them in a folder and waited. My husband came down the stairs half awake, sipping his coffee, talking about a project deadline. I didn't say a word until he sat down. Then I slid the folder across the table. He looked confused at first. Then his face changed as he opened it. The photo, the emails, everything. I watched the color drain from his face, his eyes moving quickly, jaw tightening with each line he read. For the first time, he was quiet.
No excuses. No laughter.
Just silence. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I blinked hard to hold back the tears. Because I didn't know if you'd believe me, I said. Because every time I tried, you were too busy defending him. He didn't respond right away. Just sat there, staring at the evidence of the man he thought was his mentor, his biggest supporter. It hit him slowly, painfully. The betrayal wasn't just mine. It was his too. Mr. Clay had manipulated both of us in different ways. That evening, my husband confronted him. I wasn't there, but I know he didn't yell. That wasn't his way. But I also know the truth was laid bare, and it couldn't be ignored. By the next week, Mr. Clay had stepped down from his position, citing personal reasons. No one in the office knew the real story, but it didn't matter anymore. What mattered was what came after. My husband and I went to counseling, not just to rebuild trust, but to understand where we lost each other along the way. It wasn't easy. Some things were too broken to fully repair. But we tried. We had to. Because in the end, this wasn't just about what Mr. Clay did. It was about what we ignored. The red flags. The silences. The growing distance. That night didn't just ruin our marriage. It exposed the truth we were both too scared to face. And sometimes, that's what it takes, not to destroy something, but to finally wake up and choose whether to fix it or let it go.